something I stumbled across I thought would make a good quick video. This is the overlap time period between onions and garlic. Onions grow in the last part of the winter, and then they flower in spring, and then they're gone until later in the year, where garlic doesn't spring up until early to mid-spring, and then it doesn't flower until late spring and early summer. And you can see here the difference. This is garlic on top, onions on bottom, and you can see how they're structurally different. The lower section of the garlic stalk will become woody and hard as the garlic grows, and you can see how the garlic is much taller than the onions. And you can see here how the onions have already developed their scapes and they're getting ready to flower, where the garlic hasn't even really started to develop the scapes at all. We'll try to do this slowly so it's not too jerky. And go over here where we can see this is the onions growing, and you can see where the scape development is on those. But it's a little different scene when you dig up the onions. They don't have the clothes and the dirt around the bulbs. Then over here we have a garlic plant, and you can see here how the scape has just barely begun to develop at the tip of the shaft. If you dig up the garlic, you can see in the dirt the cloves from developing from seeds from other garlic plants. And things like this, they're obviously not young onions. They have the same shapes and textures as the garlic you find at the grocery store. Also the same flavors. So you don't find that anywhere but with the garlic. You may also find ticks on the garlic stalks. The spiders themselves are hard to see, but if you look closely, you may see their webs. Predatory spiders love to set up their traps in onion flowers to catch the bees as they come to pollinate the flowers. And then they devour the bees. If you can catch them still above ground before the stem deteriorates and turns loose from the bulb below, these onion seeds pods can be a nice little morsel to stash back. Later in the growing season, the differences just become more apparent. The garlic loses the dark green or dark blue-green tint of its stalks, and they turn more brown as they get more woody, while the onions still maintain the green. Well, except for what's below ground, it's white because it's not getting sunlight, but it's still more pliable than the garlic stalks. And another difference that is easy to spot is in their flowers. As we leave spring and go into summer, the onions are already flowering, where much of the garlic really hasn't started flowering yet. It's just beginning to develop the flower heads. And you can see how structurally different the plants are. And if you cut into, this is going to be difficult one-handed, but if you cut into the onion, you can see the rings. And if you cut into the garlic, you can see the development of the cloves, how they're beginning to grow. And the garlic, as I have here, and the onions both can be twisted and tied into rings like this, where they can be allowed to be hung up and be allowed to dry for later consumption. I will never forget all the years of walking in and finding all the rings of onions and garlic drying on my grandfather's back porch. Man, those sure were the days. And as the last of the onions are flowering and winding down their season, the raspberries are just beginning to flower. So that's material for another video in the future.